Hello and welcome to Lazy Language, another video, guys. And in this video, I'm gonna discuss the layers of languages. The first video in the new format, of course, was about what is a language. So now that we know, hopefully, for those who have watched the first video, language is a description of outside world. But it's not that simple. It is in a concept, but in practice, the description differs from language to language, or how I should call it, or how I like to call it, is perspective to perspective. And for me, in these 7 to 8 years of learning multiple languages, I found three layers of any language. The first layer is just a word by word translation. And what we are working with is hello, hi, how are you, cat, and any of those words. And I know I'm obsessed with pussy, so yeah, I'm gonna use the word cat a lot. So what you see in the first layer is just straight translation. It's better to represent the picture of the pussycat in your head when you are thinking, get your minds out of the gutter, by the way. When you are thinking of a fluffy little thing and call it, okay, cat, sha, gorbe, whatever it is, and see the picture and associate it to a new word in another language. But you could easily say, hey, sha, cat, katze, cat. And it doesn't affect the thought process behind it. It does hurt you when you say hana, flower, or floor, hana. It does miss the picture in your head, but at the end of the day, you're gonna learn, okay, hono means fire, foyar means, of course, fire. So when you translate from one language to the other in the first layer, you could skip the step that you think of the picture and you just repeat non-stop. I don't recommend it, but it's still not that crucial to learning the words. You say hi, hello, hi, bonjour, or salut, whatever it is. But it's easier if you imagine someone saying hi, or a picture associated with a picture. And when you see fire, you say foyar or atash. Whatever it is, it's better to associate it to a word, so it's easier for you to change the title of that image rather than associating two words to one another, which is kind of the hard way to do it. But it's still, in the first layer, it's not that important, so to say, that you need to associate this to a picture or a clip or a GIF to understand it. So to sum it up, the first layer is just, you have the picture, you have the name, and you could immediately translate from one language to the other language. The functionality of those words representing a concept are the same. Hello means hello, and it means of greeting someone in any language. Fire means this fixed picture of fire. So water means wasser, whatever it is. You could either say water, wasa, lo, agua, or you say, okay, water, I imagine the picture of water, whatever it is, it's a bottle of water, it's like the ocean. You imagine water and now say, okay, I know this as water. Now I'm gonna also know it as lo. I'm gonna also know it as agua. I'm gonna also know it as ab. So what happens is, you either way go and associate the new word, new title to an already existing picture, or you just associate two words. It's nothing deep. And it works both ways. But the second layer is just a little bit different. The second layer is just, it mostly happens with structures and with idioms. Most of the idioms are for the third layer that I'm gonna touch upon shortly, but day-to-day expressions are the second layer. It's not like the same thing as, okay, this picture has so many mouth movements to represent it. Fire, fire, water, wasser. But the second layer, it's not just another mouth movement to represent a concept, a picture. The second layer represents when you want to say the same, use the same functionality and express the same thing, but it's not word by word the same thing as the first layer would be. For example, "Como te vas" is literally how are you going, or how is it going for you. To ask someone how they are doing. Even in English, how do you do is different from how is it going, or what's up, or anything representing I'm curious about your state of being. I'm asking about your state of being. So even in one language, we could say one thing in different formats. Instead of saying how do you do, how are you feeling, how is it going, they all represent the same idea of us asking the other person about their state of being. But what happens is, we address it in different formats. One is straightforward, how are you feeling? What is your state of being now? I know this is getting too much philosophical, but it's not. And just let me cook. So how are you doing and what is your state of being, or how are you feeling, are different things. And add to that, how is it going? What is it? And what is going? It's not like, it's not a train. We are not a machine. We are not we are not a taxi driver to go somewhere, but it's metaphorical to state of being. And when it comes to a new language, you learn that in multiple languages, we use different things. Even for one language, for example, in Spanish, we say "Cómo te vas?" How is it going for you? Or "Cómo te encuentras?" How do you find yourself? What is the state of you finding yourself? I know it's quite complex stuff, but the idea is the same. I wanna know what is your state of being now. And when you discuss this in another language, you need to understand that in another language, this could represent itself in so many ways. One of the ways is that, why do you say in Spanish, how do you find yourself? And in German, it's wie geht's dir, or how is it going for you? But in another language, the most prominent is what's up, what is up, or so many things, or quad nov, which means like anything new, what is good, even in English. So there are so many iteration of one thing in different cultures, in different even subcultures within a culture. For example, we have specific slangs in a language, in ghettos, in suburban parts, or like formal language and formal vernacular or dialect. But what remains the same is that we are representing an idea, a concept, but with different words, with different structures. So what's very important for the second layer is that some of them are basically not practical. You say, how do you find yourself, or how are you feeling, is representative of the same idea. But when it gets like to more complicated grammars, you need to see, okay, I need to actually realize that this helps me understand the language better, as the Dutch would say. So one of the most prominent examples for me is gustar in Spanish, and gefallen in German, or manquer in French. All these verbs, instead of you being the perpetrator of the action, you are actually the subject of these verbs. For example, me gusta eso represent I like this, but in structure form, it means this likes me, or das gefällt mir. It's the same thing. This likes me, or this tastes me. For example, das Essen schmeckt mir. So when you understand these concepts, that okay, there is more fluidity in the second layer of learning a language. The first layer is just a straight translation from this to that. You could use it in a way, as I keep repeating myself, this word means this word, or you see it as, okay, this word represents this idea, this picture, so this picture could be addressed in another name, another title in this language, in another language. But the second thing is, the second layer is that you cannot just say word to word. Instead of saying, okay, to monk, which means literally you lack me, which actually means I miss you. I'm going to touch upon that why is this structured this way and my theory on it in a bit. But instead of saying in English, okay, you lack me there, we say no, this concept we are representing in English has another structure to it, which means I miss you. You don't lack me there, I miss you. And my theory on this and how I learned this was French are such a like proud people, not proud in egocentric way and in like egoistic way, but for example, when you go to a stranger and ask for the address you're looking for or something, in most of the countries you just say the most polite form. You just say, hey, excuse me, I'm looking for this address, and they're so receptive. With the French, it's just you just need to ask about how is their day going, how are they like doing, and after like 5 lines of introduction and caring about them and showing you care about them as a person, you then are allowed to ask for the address. When you go to France and you ask people, hey, I'm looking for this. Sorry, hey, hello, excuse me, I'm looking for this. Even in French, and it's imperfect like pronunciation and diction, they just say, hey, I cannot help you, because they are used to being like under the spotlight, so to say. And it's not like a jab at the French. It's just how the culture functions. When you go to France, you need to say, hey, how are you doing? How is your day so far? And after like talking for 1 or 2 minutes about them and just socializing, you are allowed to ask, okay, where do I find this? Because it's so rude to just jump in and bump up to people, say, hey, I need to go this and go to this place, and where is this? You most of the time don't get any answers from the other person. So my theory on the structure of manquer, which is you lack me there instead of I miss you, is that we put ourselves in the vulnerable side of things when we say, okay, I miss you, I am the vulnerable side here. But when you say you lack me there, you are basically seeing as their point of view, hey, you want me there, which means we are saving our grace and like saving our vulnerable side and saying, hey, I'm stating the fact, you don't have me there, or you I'm missing there. It applies that I want to be there with you, but it doesn't do it as I'm the vulnerable side. I know this may sound some gibberish and like some mindfuckery, but it's not, and it actually works. Even if it's not the reason behind this grammar, when you associate this concept with this grammar, you will learn it easy as ABC, because it's like pan comido, c'est du gâteau, as the French say, because it's just simpler to associate things to what we feel and we have emotional connection with. And in this example, when I say, okay, when I want to be the vulnerable side, I should say this way, but when I want to be removed from the emotional interaction here, I say it this way. So the French are removing themselves to be vulnerable and in some sorts like to admit defeat and say, hey, I need you here. I miss you literally means you are missing here, and like I have lost you. I have lost the presence of you here. So it's always the vulnerable act. But when you see it as the other person would, you're saying, hey, you are the perpetrator here that lacks me there. I want you with me, but you are the one who needs me more, in a sense. So this is the second layer of language, and this is important to understand each language, each perspective on viewing the world functions differently. And the second layer is when you realize, okay, I cannot translate one-to-one from one language to the other language. But the most important and most interesting thing about any language for me is that there is a third layer. And the third layer is basically 90% of time you don't even get to translate it. It doesn't, not only it doesn't translate well, most of the time it doesn't translate, period. For example, I almost always use this example. In Turkish, we say İldirimler şahanda. İldirimler şahanda represents the idea of setting the stage, setting the scene of when the thunder strikes. That's it. But the verb şahanda has implied emotional weight that it cannot be expressed in another language. Şahanda means to strike with wrath, to strike with sense of authority, to strike with sense of fear and putting the fear of God in the hearts of others. So instead of saying, hey, İldirimler şahanda, you could say, hey, when the thunder strikes with so much wrath and puts the fear of God in you, and you are feeling inferior to the glory of the thunder, it's literally one word, but you are explaining it in sentences to imply the effect and emotional weight that it's associated with. So not only one word having implied emotional weight of 5 sentences in another language is more effective because it's one word that makes you feel so many ways. When you are explaining these emotional weights that are felt on a subconscious level in a conscious manner, and you are actively explaining the feelings I should be feeling from this sentence, from this verb, it ruins the discovery and like the sense of being hit all at the same time with all these range of emotions with one verb. So it doesn't, at the end of the day, it doesn't convey the same emotional weight to connect with the language that you are actually like understanding it in the first language. So it doesn't even translate to another language. And this is the most fun for me, but some of them could loosely be translated to another languages. For example, I still put this in the third layer when you say cracher dans la soupe, which means to spit in a soup, or bite the hand that feeds you. Both represent being not very grateful person, but the excessive amount of disrespect shown when you are biting a hand is another level than when you are spitting in a soup that it's being served to you. Or the other example is remuer le couteau dans la plaie, which means to twist a knife in a wound, or just add insult to injury. Add insult to injury is vague, but in another language they say namak bar zakhm pashidan, which literally means to add salt to the injury. So you see, when you add insult to injury, you could just imagine, okay, I'm injured and someone is making fun of me. This is insult to injury, but it's not that deep. When someone have like an open wound and they are adding salt to it, you feel the disgust, you feel like the pain it would cause. But when you add this twisting a knife in the wound, it goes whole nother like level of pain you feel from just hearing it, because it implies how insulting and how like painful this is for us. All three represent the same thing, that you are making the matters worse for the other person. By the way, I'm doing this all in one take, and it's more sincere and more like productive on my side, rather than doing scripted and robotic like reading off of a script. I don't find that like genuine. So the idea is these 3 layers are what makes a language, for me at least. And in order to tackle each layer, you need to understand, okay, for the first layer, I need a picture, I need a GIF, I need some imagery in my head to associate these words with. Because we think in pictures, no matter where you look, we always think in pictures. But for the second layer, the idea is, okay, we just cannot translate this means this means this, because the structure is different, and the functionality of each structure in a language differs from the other. And the third layer is just, you need to understand the emotional weight associated with these words and their functionality in a language to be able to understand what they actually mean. Yes, when you say someone, when you tell someone, please be quiet, shut up, or pipe down, all 3 lead to the same action of staying quiet. But as one of my teachers once told me, and he was very like knowledgeable person on how languages function, he told me, when you tell someone to be quiet, the message is straightforward. There is no thinking involved. So they could easily disregard the message. But when you tell someone to shut up, there is a 1 millisecond unconscious and in subconscious level thought put into it, and you linger upon this, you ponder upon this notion of, okay, if I shut up, I cannot talk. So the outcome would be me being quiet. And this works because you are spending more time analyzing this on a subconscious level to get to the result that is asked of you. Yeah, I know the implied extensive language and how shut up and please be quiet work in different occasions and could differ and could imply like how tense the request is, and even if it's a request or an order. But at the end of the day, the subconscious level thought put into these 2 represents that you are more emotionally involved with the more vague concept, that you yourself discover what this means. So to wrap it up, we discussed 3 layers of languages in this video, and for me, the most fun is the third layer, because no Google Translate, no AI, nothing can imply the functionality and emotional weight behind a structure, behind a sentence, a verb in a language, unless you understand it in that language. And this is the most fun for me, because you could experience some range of emotions that were locked in your own language, in another language. And that's why I appreciate the third layer so much. And specifically that like 1% or like 0.1% of a language that could not be translated, because it has like 1,000 years of different style of life behind it, and it has so many like implied emotions behind it that you could not express it in another language. So that's the video, and hope it was interesting and had like thought bubbles in your head when you look at a new language, when starting to learn a new language. I'm gonna keep uploading videos and sharing my 7 to 8 years knowledge of learning multiple languages. And I myself am always looking forward to learning new things about language and stuff. I've been like going down the rabbit hole for like 5 or 6 years almost now. And these things that I'm saying and sharing here, I've never seen them being represented like this. The other day I saw like a video of 10 years old, like polyglot, not 10 years old, the video was 10 years old and had like 34 millions of views, but a polyglot was explaining, okay, we think in images. And I was like, oh yeah, that's exactly what I was thinking. And I was like preaching, so to say. But the raw idea of learning languages and how languages actually function from start to finish, I've never like encountered that. Maybe I haven't like dug deep enough into rabbit hole, because there are so many people learning languages and they are so like self-aware of learning process themselves. But yeah, that's the video. Have an overworthy day, and till the next one, peace.